Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, this weekend we have been making a lot of good progress around the shop with my air system, my air compressor system. And after many months now of kind of things being in the works, I have usable air in the shop. So if you remember from my, if you've watched my channel regularly, I think it was back in May of this past year. So this is March for all intent and purposes of 2021. Back in May of 2020, I purchased and brought a really nice big heavy duty air compressor into the shop. And it's really taken me almost this long to really get it all hooked up and going. Now, I did have it hooked up where I had one drop in the back of the shop, and I'm gonna show you a little bit about this system in a little bit. I had that set up for probably a couple of months, but I've been needing to get my air lines ran around the shop where I really had air accessible where I needed it. And where we're at as of today, this is on Sunday afternoon. We've been working on this all day Saturday, and I started out here after lunch today on Sunday, but I think we've got it pretty well, I'm gonna say roughed in. It's at least usable. I still have 2 more drops I need to put in, and I just ran out of supplies. Also ran out of time, but I ran out of supplies. So in preparation for this, this past week, I had to make trips to 3 different stores to get all the pipe and fittings that I needed to do this. And even after going to 3 different home improvement stores, 2 Lowe's and 1 Home Depot, in 2 different towns, and buying up what little bits and pieces they had, I was still short a couple of, a handful of pipe fittings that really kind of kept me from getting done. And I can get them. I'm just going to have to order them or wait for them to come into stock. But no big deal. We've got, like I said, usable air in the shop. So big thank you out to Miles McDonald. I was going to try to shoot some video throughout the whole thing to kind of give you guys some content. And as often happens when I'm just concentrated on getting a job done, and particularly when I got other people in here working with me, a lot of times I get tunnel vision and I forget to get the camera out. I'm really trying to get the job done. In this case, I was paying Miles by the hour, and when I'm over here futzing around with the camera, it just takes too long. That's the bottom line, and that's the main reason. I did get a little bit of video shot, and we'll put that in here in a little bit, of me doing some pipe fitting. And that it was kind of the game plan here. So I kind of stayed on the ground for the most part, and my job was cutting pipe, doing the pipe fitting, threading pipe, putting pieces together, and I had Miles up doing the work on the ladder. He's younger than me. If he falls off a ladder, it won't be good, but it'll be a lot better on him than it will be me. I hate to be that way, but I'm getting to where I don't like being on ladders. I still get on them, but I really try to avoid them as much as possible. But got around here and got it done. So let me kind of just do a walkthrough with you guys and show you the inside of the shop. Then we're going to go out and look at the air compressor itself and show you how I got that set up. And I got an outside compressor shed dedicated to the air compressor. And yeah, I probably went overboard on this, guys. I probably went beyond what I needed to do, but you know, I'm kind of the camp that you do it right, you do it once, you do it right once, and you don't have to worry about anything going back. As somebody once told me, it says if you're going to do it, you might as well overdo it. And that's kind of what I did here. I probably overdid things, but hey, I don't have to worry about it. One question I know I'm going to get. Now, I used galvanized pipe for my air system in here. And I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, what about that blue plastic pipe that's made for air? It's not PVC, it's not PEX, but it's actually made for air. Why didn't you use that? And that's a good question, and I know I'm going to get it, so I'm just going to go ahead and address it right here, right now. And the bottom line, the reason that I chose to go with the galvanized pipe, really 2 reasons. Number one, I just feel like galvanized is better. It's going to last longer. I'm not going to say it's bulletproof because it's not, but I don't think that I will, in my lifetime, have to come in here and do anything to it. That black or the blue plastic stuff, I know it's been around for a little while. I know people have been real happy with it, but still in the back of my mind, I question how long is that stuff going to last before it starts breaking down. It may last forever. I don't know, but really, the main reason I chose to go with galvanized over I forget even what it's called, the blue plastic stuff, is that I really just didn't want to have blue plastic pipe in my shop. I have worked really hard to create this shop that has somewhat of a feel of an old-time shop. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but that's really what I'm looking for. And for me, the aesthetics of running that blue plastic pipe through here, I would have never been happy with it. I'll be honest with you, if it had been black plastic pipe, I probably would have used it, but I just didn't like that bright blue. Yeah, crazy, maybe. A lot more work to put up the galvanized, absolutely. Cost more money to put up the galvanized, yes, it did. But at the end of the day, I don't have to worry about this forever. It's done. So let's do a walk around and kind of show you what we did. All right, I'm going handheld here to kind of show this, but this is in the very back corner of the shop, and on the other side of this wall is my compressor shed, and this is where the air comes in. I got a T right there. I put over on this end, we just got a union there where if I want to extend that out in the other direction, I can. It comes over. This is just a drop right here that comes down. I got an elbow down here on the bottom. I need to take that out and put a T in there. That's something I need to fix. But then it goes up, and I turned the center lights off because it was just blowing out the video, but you can see I've got up here in the top, right along in here, I got a loop that runs all the way around the shop. It goes through there, up into the front shop, comes back through the wall over there, and comes back around, and again, makes a loop completely around the shop. All this is 1-inch pipe. I wanted to have something that had plenty of air volume that we could move plenty of air through, and then just not have to worry about anything. Now, I've got 10-foot sticks, and every place that there is a joint in here, instead of using a coupler, I put a T in there, and that's a T that has a 1/2-inch pipe coming off the top, and that's for my drops to come down from. And I pointed them up. You always on drops should have them pointed up, and that way your air will go up. You don't have any moisture or any rust or anything in the pipes to drop down through there. So here's a drop over here. You can see the drop goes up, it elbows down, and then comes down, and then I have it coming down to my pipes, and we got some strut holding it in place, and that one's capped off right now, but I'll have an air fitting on there. And with the T's, I can come off the bottom if I want to have a second one or a third one. I can just kind of add more on there as needed down the road. I ran out of brass fittings, I bought out all the ones I could get, and I just didn't have enough, so I've still got to come back and put a few of those in. So again, there's a T there. I'm probably going to put a drop there that comes down to a hose reel at some point in time. But again, everywhere we got a joint, I got a place I can tap into. The other thing I'll mention is that every 2 sticks or every 20 feet, I put a union in. The union is right before that T. I apologize, the camera being shaky here. But those unions, you can take those apart and take your pipe down and work on it. So again, if I ever need to cut pipe or something, I'm never having to deal with more than 20 foot of pipe anywhere in here. So those unions are expensive, but I used them a good bit. Now this inside loop, this is coming up to the front of the shop, and I purposely dropped it down a little bit so it's a little bit of an angle, and this is my lowest point right over here in this corner. So basically from the back of the shop to the front of the shop, it drops about 1 inch. And the idea there is if any moisture or debris gets in those lines, it's going to come down to this front corner. And if you look, I kind of put a little P-trap in there where it drops down. And there is a drop that comes down, but that's just a blow down. I just got a valve down here. I'm going to pipe this outside eventually, but I can open up that valve and any moisture, any trash that gets in those lines should come to the lowest point, which is going to be right there, and put it out. And if you look right next to it, there's one going up. And again, that's my dry air coming down and into a fitting right there. So I thought I'd real quickly just go over how we're cutting this pipe to length and threading it. I've got a tripod here for pipe. I've actually borrowed this from the museum. This is not mine. Most of the stuff I got is mine. This is a piece of 1/2-inch pipe, and it's 10 foot long, and I made a measurement. It needs to be 8 foot long, so let's measure it. And we need to cut it right about here. I'm gonna let that stick out a little bit from the vise here and clamp that down. Now they make a thing that goes around and around this to cut this. I've got one that came with my threading setup, but the dies on it are a little bit worn, so I've been cheating. And somebody will probably say this is not the right way to do it, but it works. Next thing I want to do is take a reamer here, and we'll just ream the inside of that. That just gets any sharp burrs off in there. For the threading, I'm using this rigid 100, and this is a really nice little setup here. It uses the exact same threading dies that you use with the hand ratchet, but this one's powered, and we'll just come in here. It started threading there. Make sure we use plenty of oil. And that's deep enough, and then we'll just reverse it off. Now with this still in the pipe vise here, I'll put some pipe dope on here, or joint compound, whatever you want to call it. And in this case, I'm just putting a little extension. I had to put a little dog leg in there to get this pipe over, but we'll go ahead and get that threaded on there. Use a pipe wrench here to get some leverage on this and tighten that up. So I flipped this around. This is the other end of the pipe, and it came with factory threads on that side. And we'll go ahead and, again, a lot of people use Teflon tape. I use Teflon tape a lot. This basically does the same thing. It's just kind of a lubricant to help get that joint nice and tight. And it does have some sealing capabilities as well. But it's mainly a lubricant. Pipe threads are tapered, so as you tighten them up, the taper will tighten up and they will kind of self-seal. And having a little bit of lubricant in there kind of helps you get a little extra bit of a turn on it that just seals it up a little bit more. In this case, I got a plug on the bottom of this. I will put this will be my drops coming down. And I'm going to put a drain, a little petcock in the bottom of these. I don't have enough right now, so I'm just putting a plug in there. We'll go back and change those once I get some more in. But go ahead and put that in there. And I'll just use a crescent wrench on that plug, and I'm just going to tighten them both up at the same time here. When I turn this, if you notice, it's turning both of those fittings simultaneously, so I can just tighten up kind of one place and get them both tight at one time. Kind of figure out which direction I want this thing pointing when it comes out. Yeah, it needs to be pointing kind of straight over that way. We'll make another turn on this. That's already getting pretty tight. I'm gonna stop about right there, and I'll adjust that. It's gonna have to go a little bit more, but once I get it in place, I'll tighten it into position. But this pipe is ready to go up. And now for the compressor itself. And I mentioned I built this little compressor shed. And this was done back in early summer. I came in and we poured a concrete slab off the back, and I built a little lean-to shelter back here. I've still got to get a door on this to finish this room out, but let's take a peek in here. So the Emax air compressor is what I purchased for my air in the shop. I did a lot of research on these things, and this is ultimately what I decided to go with. This is a 10 horsepower air compressor. This thing makes a lot of air, and I really wanted to have enough to be able to run a blasting cabinet or something like that inside the shop without having to struggle for air. It has a 10 horsepower motor on there. That is a single phase motor, not a 3-phase. I know people are going to ask why, since I have the rotary phase converter. I just didn't want to use up any of my my capacity on the 3-phase on the air compressor with it coming on and off. The other thing is I didn't want to have to run the phase converter to run the air compressor. So I decided to go single phase there. Yeah, that takes a pretty good sized circuit, but anyway, that's what I decided to do. Now, this way I've got this thing plumbed in here, and this is probably where I kind of went overboard, but first off, I'll tell you what, first off, let me show you. I've got this really cool switch set up in here, turn it on and off. I got another panel by the front door of the shop, and this light here will light up. Actually, I got to get the right bulb for it. I've got some ordered, like everything else is taking a lot of time to get here. But I can turn this on either here in the shed or up at the front door where I come in out of the shop, and I'll have an indicator light telling me if it's on. But when I push this button, the compressor turns on. I'm going to turn it off right now while I'm talking, and that thing's going to hiss. I apologize. But that is going up to a box up here in the top, and I had my friend Milt Slima come down, and he helped me with some control wiring. Inside that box, we got a couple of relays and a transformer. We're running 24 volts for control voltage, and basically whenever we hit this switch, it's doing multiple things. First off, it's enabling the power to go to the coil that turns the air compressor on and off. So we got that, but then we've also got, coming out of that box down here, we've got this electrical box, and this is all switched power. So whenever the switch is on, this 110 volt outlet becomes hot, and the first thing you notice, we got a hardwired one in here. This goes over to a solenoid valve on my tank, and basically whenever I turn it on, it automatically opens up the tank. Normally, when we shut it off, it's going to shut the air pressure off inside this tank, so I should be able to keep my air pressure up, at least in the tank right here, and that valve automatically closes. From there, it goes up a standpipe in the back. That's a pretty large diameter. The idea there is going to, I think it's a 2-inch pipe, and by going to that larger diameter, you change the velocity, and that should kind of help some of the moisture separate out. It then comes over to this pre-cooler, and this thing here is kind of like a radiator. It has a fan, has radiator type fins inside of it, and the air goes through that radiator, and this basically helps reduce the temperature of the air. This is for helping to separate moisture out. When your compressor compresses, it generates a lot of heat. That heat holds moisture, and down here in South Georgia where I'm at with high humidity, you can get a lot of water saturated in your air. So going through this pre-cooler, again, that drops the temperature down of the air. It comes out of the pre-cooler down in this line down below, comes over here to a moisture separator. And this is a nice heavy-duty moisture separator. It has an automatic valve on it that when there's a float inside, whenever the water gets up to a certain point, it automatically opens up that little brass valve on the bottom. I still got work to do in here. I got to get where it channels that outside. Right now it's just blowing it on the floor, but I got to get all that done. From this valve, it goes over into this 80-gallon tank here, which is just a receiving tank. It's just, again, to give me a little bit more air velocity. So between basically I got two 80-gallon tanks, one on the compressor and one here. This air here has been pre-cooled, and it has gone through the moisture separator. From there, the air goes up and it drops down into this box. And I should mention here that the pre-cooler as well as this box, this is an air refrigerator type deal. It's basically an air dryer, and it cools the air down more, and it also drains any water out of that air that goes through there. I've got it set up with some valves where I can bypass it or either go through it depending on how I got it. Right now it's bypassing it, but I can close that top valve, open the side valves, and the air will go through this cooler. And both the air dryer as well as the pre-cooler are plugged in down here on the switch so that they only run when I have the compressor turned on. So when I leave the shop at night, I hit one switch, it turns off everything out here in the compressor shed. So now the air comes out of the air cooler or bypasses it depending on which way we're going, comes back down, and we've got some more filters here. This filter here, it will separate moisture, but it's also really it's a coalescing filter, so it's separating oil and any kind of trash that may be in that line. The air should be pretty dry by the time it gets there. From there, it goes through this Wicks filter over here. This is a screw-on filter, kind of like an oil filter. It's kind of just the last chance to get moisture out. You've replaced that filter a couple of times a year. And again, any moisture that has gotten through the system at this point should be pulled out there. Then we have a pressure regulator down here to adjust the line pressure that goes into the shop. So anyway, a lot going in here. I've still got to get I've got valves down here in the bottom of the tanks to drain the tanks. I actually have an electronic valve. I got to get all that plumbed in, as well as this drain here, where periodically throughout the day, it's going to actually purge and drain both of these tanks, and that'll be plugged in up here as well, so that like I said, about every half hour, it's going to open that valve up, and that will drain any water that's in the bottom of the tanks. A lot of stuff going on out here in the compressor shed, and all this is outside the shop. It's fairly quiet when the air compressor is running inside. And anyway, we'll have a door on there. I've still got to get that mounted on there now that I pretty much have this finished. And that's just a dedicated room and area for my compressor. So I wanted to show you this. This is the main door that I come in out of the shop at. And this is my control panel that I put in here that controls the air compressor, as well as my phase converter now is also controllable from here. Now, one thing you guys will notice is I had to move my sticker board. I didn't have room for it. I moved it up above the door. I have a wide shot here because folks are always looking at that. I wanted to see we still got it in shop. I just changed this location. So here's a little closer up view of my control panel, and I put this in. I salvaged these boxes as well as all these switches off of some components that a friend and a local friend and a viewer gave me a while back, and we decided to use this to kind of control everything. So for the air compressor, turn that on, I don't know if you can hear it, but the air compressor kicked on in the back. It's really not very loud, but you can, if you listen close, you can hear it back there. Again, we will have a light in here that lights this up. It's a 24-volt control system on this one, and I've had to order a 24-volt light bulb to go in there, and I ordered them like 2 weeks ago, and they're back ordered. So I'm waiting on those to come in. If you guys can't see it, it's got a 120-volt light bulb in it right now, and I can barely see it, a little bit of light in there if you look really close where it's trying to burn, so I know it's going to work. But normally that'll be lit up red, and when I go to leave the shop in the afternoon and I'm walking out the door, I can look over here real quickly, is the compressor on or off? If it's on, I just push that button, shuts it down. And we also tied in again to my phase converter. Now I've got a switch over there on the back wall where I can turn it on and off. I also have a remote control where I can turn it on and off, but I will not, and I've got a light over there, a green light that comes on whenever it's on that I'm supposed to be able to see in the shop, but I'll just be honest, there's been more than one time that I've left the shop and left the phase converter running all night long. So again, right here, this one will light up. When we turn it on, you can see it lighting up there. We've got an indicator that the phase converter is on, and then turn it off, just push the light in. So I can control both of those right here going in and out the door and be able to tell if things are on. I really don't want to run my air compressor all night long when I'm not in the shop, nor my phase converter. I got visual cues here to remind me they're on, and I can turn them on and control them right here from one nice convenient location. Well guys, it is a load off of my mind to finally have this air compressor system and air system working in the shop. Like I said, really kind of started with the whole idea of putting this in. Man, it's been 7-8 months ago now. It's taken a while. It's been a lot of work. It's cost a lot of money. But I've got an air system in here now, and air in a shop is something I think that a lot of people overlook this value unless you got a good air system. Up until now, I just had a little small portable air compressor. Then I wheeled it around the shop, used it whenever I needed to, or either use a little pancake compressor. Like I said, I did have the big air compressor, at least where I had one drop in the very back there, probably the last 3 or 4 months. But I had to actually go out to the compressor shed, manually turn things on and off. Didn't have all the controls and everything plumbed up and everything like it is now. And even then, it was like the one drop that I had was probably in the most inconvenient place in the entire shop, and I had to run cords and hoses to get to where I needed it to. Now I'm never more than probably 10, 15 feet away from a drop where I can go plug into. And I'm sure that over time that I'm gonna probably put even more drops in here. I'll probably eventually get some along the back walls and so forth like that. Even have, you know, a drop on specific machines where I know I'll be using air a lot. And I'm hoping to get some hose reels in here too to kind of help out as well. I got a lot of options now where before I didn't have any. And with that big air compressor, I should have all the air that I think that I will need. Again, that's enough to run my bead blaster, which is really the big thing that I want to do. And I've got a bead blaster I need to get hooked up and running. Now that I've got air, I have no excuse to get that done. And that's going to be a huge help with many of my restoration projects. So there you go. That's how I spent my weekend. And again, I'm just excited that it's finally done. And now I can really focus back on other things like finishing my metal planer restoration. I've got this kind of checked off the list. Yeah, a few little small things still to do, 2 drops to put in. I got to get a little bit more plumbing done out there in the shed with my drains and so forth like that. But for the most part, it's done, and it's at least usable now. And I can put those other drops in pretty much just whenever. Got an extra hour or 2 here and there. Come out here one evening and just put a drop in each night for a couple of nights, and we'll be done. So should have it all knocked out completely soon. Guys, that's going to be a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And those thumbs up and comments are appreciated. Catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.